We're studying Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 7, entitled Further Inquiries by Vidura. And we're on text 18. It's July 27th, 2024. 3-7-18. Arta abhavam, without substance. Vinishchita, being ascertained. Patitasya, of the apparent values. Api, also. Na, never. Atmana, of the self. Tam, that. Cha, also. Api, thus. Yusmat, your. Charana, feet. Sevaya, by service. Aham, myself. Paranude, shall be able to give up. Artabhavam vinishchitya, artabhavam vinishchitya, pratitasya pinatmana, tam chapi yushmach charana, sevayaham paranude. Artabhavam vinishchitya, pratitasya pinatmana, tam chapi yushmach charana, sevayaham paranude. Artabhavam vinishchitya pratitasya pinatmana tam chapi ushmacharana sevayaham paranude. Arta abhavam, without substance. Vinishchitya, being ascertained. Pratitasya, of the apparent values. Api, also. Na, never. Atmana, of the self. Tam, that. Cha, also. Api, thus. Yushmat, your. Charana, feet. Sevaya, by service. Aham, myself. Paranude, shall be able to give up. Translation. But, my dear sir, I am obliged to you because now I can understand that this material manifestation is without substance, although it appears real. I am confident that by serving your feet, it will be possible for me to give up the false idea. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The sufferings of the conditioned soul are superficial and have no intrinsic value, like the cutting off of one's head in a dream. Yet, although this statement is theoretically very true, it is very difficult for the common man or the neophyte on the transcendental path to realize practically. However, by serving the feet of great transcendentalists like Maitreya Muni, and by constantly associating with them, one is enabled to give up the false idea that the soul suffers from material pangs. Om Jnana-timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuranmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svaya Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uttapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavams Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Saganaraganatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Purijana Sahitan Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Saganarat Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitam Cha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagat Pite Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radhakanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpata Yupyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanan Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine Nasta Prayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavat Utama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasvatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should first offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Sarasvati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 7, Text 18. Artabhavam vinishchitya pratitasya binatmana tam chapi yushmacharana sevayaham paranude. But, my dear sir, I am obliged to you because now I can understand that this material manifestation is without substance, although it appears real. I am confident that by serving your feet, it will be possible for me to give up the false idea. Hare Krishna. Yes, Hare Krishna Anasuya. We're studying Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 7, Text 18. Text 18. And the translation is Vidura speaking to Maitreya. But, my dear sir, I am obliged to you because now I can understand that this material manifestation is without substance, although it appears real. I am confident that by serving your feet, it will be possible for me to give up the false idea. Hare Krishna. Hello, Rosa, welcome. Yes, so here we have Vidura speaking, and he's describing in summary how we're entangled in miserable, in illusion that is the source of so much suffering and misery. And he's also giving the process of disentanglement and the process of liberation towards our natural, original, blissful, joyful state of consciousness and mind and being and existence. So this whole section, there's Maitreya and Vidura, there's different analogies given to describe the illusion. Prabhupada references one of them in this purport. The sufferings of the conditioned soul are superficial and have no intrinsic value, like the cutting off of one's head in a dream. So if I'm seeing my head get cut off, well, it must be a hallucination, because if I'm seeing, it means my head's still on. It's a gruesome analogy, but it's like a dream analogy. There's another analogy given, just like let's say in a pool of water, we might see, oh, the moon is rippling, and the moon is very unsteady and light, but actually the moon is very clear and shining steady in the sky. But seeing it on that surface of the water, so similarly, the soul that we are inside the gross body and the subtle material body of mind and intelligence, the soul is actually called kutastha, very steady. But it seems like, oh, now I'm immersed in this angry drama or this depressed drama or happy or like that. So the soul is disturbed. But actually, again, so there's so many analogies, right? We're not the car, we're the driver of the car. In the state of misidentification, then we confuse the driver for the car, and that's a miserable state. I might take care of the car, but if I forget to take care of the driver of the car, I forget to eat, I forget to take bath or shower, I forget to drink, I forget to exercise, but I think, oh no, I'm doing great because I just took the car for the tune-up. No, that's an illusion that will cause a lot of misery. Or similarly, another form of the dream analogy, or watching a movie, or being immersed in a virtual reality game. Krishna gives in the 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, he gives the analogy of a banyan tree. A tree whose roots are up and the branches are down. So that's the reflected tree on the water. Okay. So like if I'm dreaming that I'm this personality, I'm this character in the dream who's flying like a bird or who's being chased by a tiger. All right, but a person with objective vision can see there's no palace where you're enjoying like a king or flying like a bird. You're not chased by a monster. You're just lying horizontal on the bed in this room. Okay, so a true friend will think, wake up to the reality of who you really are. Come out of these illusions. So Vidura is saying, but my dear sir, speaking to his spiritual mentor, Maitreya, I am obliged to because now I can understand that this material manifestation is without substance, although it appears real. I am confident. So then Vidura gives, okay. Then he gives the way out. Then he gives the process for coming to our original state of consciousness, which is blissful and joyful, and that's service to the devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, devotees like Maitreya and Srila Prabhupada and their sincere representatives. Then I can give up the false idea. So Prabhupada makes a distinction between Gyan and Vigyan, which means Gyan is like theoretical knowledge, Vigyan is realized knowledge, actual wisdom. And Prabhupada said that even though the sufferings of the conditioned soul are superficial, that statement is, and this statement that, the material world is an illusion, it's like a dream world, that's theoretically true, very true. Still, it is very difficult for the common man or the neophyte on the transcendental path to realize practically. So by humbly engaging in service, then we achieve actual realization. So this is the key. Later today, Patrick Prampra Prabhu, he's scheduled for me to conduct a online group coaching graduate, a session online. I think it's 1 o'clock to 2:30 p.m. Eastern for graduates of the Software of Advanced seminar. So I'm looking forward to that. And a few weeks ago, he asked me to give it a title and a write-up. So I titled it "The One in Front of the Zeros," which is an analogy that Prabhupada uses a lot. I've used it thousands of times because it's so relevant, and it's relevant to this verse. So Vidura uses the term without substance. So just like the basic analogy is that we get from Srila Prabhupada, if we have a string of zeros, 10 zeros, 20, 30, 40, 50 zeros, what's the value? The value is a big zero. It's a zero. But what if we add more zeros? It's still zero. And if we put if we place the one in front of the zeros, if we place the one, then the one that gives value to the string of zeros then becomes a very large number, trillions and quadrillions, and et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so the zeros are the different areas of life. Maybe it's our financial situation, or the type of residence we reside in, or maybe the physical health, or et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So we know that even if different areas of life that are apparently going well, we know that it's all empty and hollow and futile to whatever extent we're lost to ourselves. We're lost to ourselves, right? It's a biblical expression, like he who gains the world but loses himself is lost. Okay, so that's it. So that if we're disconnected from who we are and our life purpose and self-realization, so the one that gives value to all those other departments of life, compartments of life, that's that self-realization, the self turning towards itself and self-awareness, and I'll say a more precise and more complete explanation of the one is self-realization, and the self, in realizing itself, engaging with enthusiasm in devotional service, watering the root of the tree, to use another analogy from Srimad Bhagavatam. If we water the root of the tree, then all the branches, leaves, and twigs are nourished. Okay, the term for watering the root of the tree, the root of the tree is God. It's God, and so the term for serving God with love and devotion, we serve God with love and devotion. We serve Krishna with love and devotion, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then all living entities are nourished, just like all the trees, branches, and twigs are nourished. So to take it out of the metaphor, it means like, well, I want to serve this race of people. I want to serve this nation. I want to serve this gender. I want to serve this species. I want to serve this political party. Okay, all right. It's good. So it's natural to want to serve, because that's the nature of the soul, to want to serve. Bob Dylan had a song called "You Gotta Serve Somebody," and he got that right. And in the song he says, you either, like, you're going to serve Mammon, Maya, the illusion, or you're going to serve God. You're going to, so like that. And so it's true. We're going to serve somebody. The term dharma is one of those terms from the timeless Sanskrit that's become pretty well known in the world, just like yoga or guru or karma, different, and more and more as the decades go on, the term bhakti is becoming more known. Let's say when I grew up in the 1970s, I'm not saying I understood the meaning of the terms, and that's the situation. Well, I would say the vast majority of people have heard of yoga, karma, guru, but what's the actual meaning? So anyhow, growing up in the 70s, I'd heard terms like that, karma, yoga, but I'd never heard of the term bhakti. So now I think more and more people are hearing that term bhakti, maybe with valid conceptions. There are lots of misconceptions too. So bhakti means serving Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the essence of the teachings of Jesus are bhakti, the Hebrew for that. Jesus was asked, what's the most important verse in the whole in the Testament? There was no New Testament in the time of Jesus. Say, what's the most important verse from the scriptures? And he quoted the Hebrew, "V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'kol levavcha, b'kol nafshcha, b'kol modecha." He said the most important verse of all the scriptures is to serve God with all your heart, all your might, all your strength, all your soul. So that's bhakti. That's bhakti. So Srila Prabhupada, in the line of Maitreya and Vidura, is giving us a very clear process for bhakti. So to get realized, again, there's knowledge, and then there's realized knowledge, which is actual wisdom. Just like someone could say, oh, I completely understand. Oh, no, cigarettes are bad for your health, and it's bad for the environment, and it's really a waste of money. And, someone could maybe go on for a while about how cigarettes are unhealthy and just bad in so many ways. At the same time, if I'm smoking, oh no, but I know that's not good. It means like, okay, maybe I got some cognitive knowledge, but I don't have realized knowledge. So, um, so similarly, whether it's about uh, wasting time on the internet or rising early for a spiritual program, we can look at the way we actually live our life is a reflection of how much realized knowledge we have or don't have. And it's not that the previous verse, it was last Sunday, Nichigopal Prabhu, he led very stimulating class on the previous verse, which reads, both the lowest of fools and he who is transcendental to all intelligence enjoy happiness, whereas persons between them suffer the material pangs. So that relates to like if we have some awareness, but I'm not yet connected with the courage and clarity and realization to act on that awareness, that's the suffering condition. That's the suffering condition. Whereas it says like the fool, or as Prabhupada says in that purport, the pig wallowing in mud and just eating slop. Okay, they're happy, and the Paramahamsa, the truly realized soul, is also happy. Of course, it's a different quality of happiness. So the troublesome, disturbing situation is in between. I got the awareness, but not quite the realization to act on that awareness. That example is not meant to discourage raising awareness, because by raising awareness, okay, then that's a beginning, including the pain and the frustration of yes, I understand that this isn't good for me. That'll really serve my true joy. Again, I'm not acting on them. That frustration, that pain, which probably we've all experienced. I know I have, and I do every day in different respects. That to experience that pain it's an opportunity to be moved. It is said that people move by inspiration or desperation. So there's the inspiration of yes, to achieve that happiness, that joy, or to complete that project, to serve Srila Prabhupada. And then there's the desperation, like this entanglement in this illusion. This is painful. This is hurtful. This is suffering. I'm embarrassed. This is shameful. Let me get out of this. And so awareness can move us to that experience, which moves us to courageously move forward. And then, the process of moving forward, it's described sometimes. What's emphasized is chant the names of God. Nam Namakri Bahudani Jasarva Shaktista Tropitani Amita Smarine Nakala Etadrashi Tavakripa Bhagavan Mamapi Dordeva Midrashami Hajani Nanuraga. That's Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saying, and that God has many names, and all of his names are invested with transcendental, transformational potency. So chant any bona fide, legitimate name of God. And this Hare Krishna Mahamantra, Idi Shudashakam Nam Nam Kalma Shanashanam. This is especially recommended. These names of God, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. These names of the supreme, these names of the absolute, the supreme person, are especially recommended for self-realization and developing love of God in this age and returning to our original blissful state. And thus Srila Prabhupada's giving us that matchless gift. So the process for liberation is described, is emphasized, in its various facets in different ways. Here, the Torah is emphasizing associating with and serving the sincere devotees of God, Krishna. And yeah, there's in the second chapter of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a series, really there's a series of 18, 19 verses that Srila Prabhupada quotes often. And especially towards the end, there's a series of, yes, 6 verses. And the first one is Shushu Shosho Danasya Vasudeva Katauchi Shanmahatsa Vyavibra Punya Shramana Kirtana. And that verse starts with, what it says is, by serving those devotees of Krishna who are completely free from vice, great service is done, and one naturally develops attraction to chant and hear the names of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the Dharma, the term Dharma means our intrinsic nature. Essentially, Dharma means the essential characteristic of something. A way to understand Dharma is that which cannot be separated from a thing. So we would say the Dharma of sugar is to be sweet. That's its nature. Can't separate sweetness from sugar. We would not say the Dharma of fire is to cook. You can have a fire that doesn't cook. We would say the Dharma of fire is to be hot. Can't separate heat from fire. Similarly, the Dharma of the spirit soul is to serve. Is to serve. We're going to serve. Our choice is how to direct our service, and we can direct our service in a way that's tamasic, rajasic, sattvic, or shuddha sattva. To the extent that we direct our service in sattvic, or especially shuddha sattva is a synonym for bhakti, then we're completely satisfied. And it's described. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Projita Janayat Yashubhairagam Gyanam Chayadahitukam. That by engaging in service to Sri Krishna, the son of Vasudeva, then naturally we get knowledge and detachment from matter. Right? So right now so the nature of the soul is to serve, and through humbly serving, Trinadapi Sunichena Tarori Vasahishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtania Sadahari. By humbly serving, see, like this service, it's not the mentality of Ishvaraham, Hambogi, Siddham, Balavan Sukhiyam. I'll get knowledge by, I'll control the elements, and then I'll enjoy them because I'll get knowledge of how to manipulate matter, including the minds of others, or manipulate chemistry, or manipulate money, and then I'll enjoy. So that's mundane knowledge. That's mundane knowledge. In chapter 13 of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, he gives like 19 qualities or elements that are intrinsic to transcendental knowledge. Now, naturally, in practicing our bhakti spiritual path, naturally, we might acquire knowledge about the material elements. Bhumira, Ponalo, Vayu, Kamana, Buddha, Evacha, Ahankram, Vitya, Me, Bina, Prakriti, Ashtara. Right? So, because just like, to take the vehicle analogy, we want to cultivate knowledge of the car. We want to know, am I in a mini compact that can fit into tight city parking spaces? Am I in an 18-wheeler? Am I in a moped? Am I in a luxury sedan? What's the gas mileage? How do I best work this brake and that gas pedal? Yeah, we want to know the car. We don't want to negative, because the car serves us on our journey. At the same time, more important is understanding who I am as the driver of the car. An example often given, if we hear there's a car crash, do we immediately ask, oh, did you get money from the insurance? Is the car in the junkyard? No. We ask, was anyone injured? Did anyone die? Because we understand the car has some importance, but the driver of the car is more important. So maybe when we hear there were no injuries or fatalities, maybe then we'll say, oh, okay, could you get the car repaired? But that's secondary. Similarly, the body has its importance, the mind, the intelligence. Okay, but the driver of the car, that's who we are, a spirit, soul. So our nature is to serve. Our choice is where to direct our service, humbly in bhakti, as Vidura is doing here. So in that string of verses that I referred to, the string of verses goes on to talk about chanting and hearing as foundational services. Shrinvatam svakta Krishna punya shravana kirtanam vijanta stoya bhadrani vidunoti saritsatam. Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the Paramatma super soul in the heart of all living entities and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, personally cleanses the heart from material desire for the devotee who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are virtuous in themselves when properly heard and chanted. So you might say, this chanting Hare Krishna, it's a prayer and it's an answer to the prayer. It's a prayer and it's the answer to the prayer. The essential mood of chanting Hare Krishna is, please God, please Krishna, please engage me in your service. Please engage me in your service. That's the essential mood. And the fundamental foundational service we get to do is to chant Hare Krishna. So it's a prayer and it's the answer to a prayer. It's the prayer and it's the answer to the prayer. And then the string of verses goes on. It gets to that process of cleansing the heart. And the very first text in that string of verses, even before it talks about chanting, it talks about serving the sincere devotees, serving to the sincere devotees of Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. And so, hi, welcome.
Hari Om.
Hare Krishna. Well,
Hare Krishna.
Krishna. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, and so this is a science. It's a science of self-realization. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada would often emphasize, like you could say, the two pillars of science. One pillar is a consistent, rational, logical hypothesis that we're encouraged to apply our intelligence to see, does this make sense? So we can say that hypothesis is given in texts like Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. And then the second pillar of science it's the experimental method. We get to do an experiment. So it's not just about, well, it makes sense, and now I accept it. No, we can, just like someone might see, oh, okay, from the algebraic chemistry equation, 2 parts hydrogen, 1 part oxygen would make water. Okay, well, it makes sense on paper, but we don't need to just accept on that basis. We can go into the laboratory and mix the hydrogen and oxygen and see if we get the same results of so many other so many other chemists. So similarly, we're encouraged. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says, you like logic and argument? Apply your intelligence to this philosophy given by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. You'll find it strikingly wonderful. And then, that was my process for years. Back in starting 1980, I was reading Prabhupada's books, beginning to take a lot of prasadam. And I had to admit to myself, even though I wasn't like searching for God or even searching for spirituality, I had to admit to myself, this philosophy given in Bhagavad Gita, this completely satisfies my intellect. It makes a whole lot more sense than any other philosophy or religious system or yoga system I'd been exposed to back there. And yeah, I was kind of like between the ages of 19 to 22. And then I could see that Srila Prabhupada and Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, they weren't just giving a philosophical system. They were giving a philosophical system, and they weren't just giving a philosophical system. Rather, they were simultaneously giving a process that, okay, if you want, because we talked earlier in the class about Gyan, knowledge, and Vigyan, wisdom, realized knowledge. Said, here's a process you can follow. The laboratory is our own heart. The laboratory is our own consciousness. Here's a process you can follow to see if you get the same results of so many other spiritual scientists like Vidura and Maitreya over the millennia. So at that time in my life, I guess it was 83, 84, I thought, well, if I want to consider myself an honest person, then I owe it to myself. I owe it to myself to not just dabble, but to endeavor, at least to some extent, to participate with some seriousness in this process. And so I decided at that time to, it was 1984. I was 23 years old at the time. I decided to do a 6-month experiment. And at that time, of all places, I was in Haaretz Yisrael. I was in Israel, and I moved into a Bhakti Yoga ashram in a place called Radhana, which is outside of Tel Aviv, Israel. And I decided to do a 6-month experiment practicing Bhakti Yoga. It can rightly be said, it is now 40 years later, and I'm still doing the experiment because I'm very satisfied with the results, deeply satisfied with the results of moving towards I certainly am not satisfied with my very, very slow and resistant process of surrender. I wish I was more enthusiastic and sincere to surrender more. I am very satisfied to the extent that I surrendered myself, given myself to this process given to us by Srila Prabhupada, representing Sri Krishna in Bhagavad Gita and all the great personalities in Bhagavatam. Then I have enough I have enough experience to know, oh, this process is completely effective. Prabhupada often quotes, in a sense, it's like a 9-level system, a 9-level step-by-step process given by Srila Rupa Goswami. And it starts, again, it relates to this humbly serving the sincere devotees of Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. So it starts at Adao Shraddha. Shraddha means faith. Faith, or Prabhupada will sometimes translate it as respect. Shraddha. Adao Shraddha means we have enough respect that, like, okay, all right, I'm not, I'm curious. I'm not convinced, but okay, let me come. Let me come and hear some Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavatam. Let me read one of Prabhupada's books. let me start associating. I'm curious. I have enough respect. I have enough respect to begin to give some attention, to give some of my, just like here, we have about a dozen of us, and we're just okay. We're giving some time and attention. There's other things we could be doing here on a Saturday morning in July, but we're giving some time and attention to Srimad Bhagavatam. So there's at Shraddha, there's faith. So then Adal Shraddha Tata Sadhu Sangha. All right, so then the next is Sadhu Sangha. That's precisely what Vidura is talking about here in his appreciation of Maitreya. Yeah, let me hang out with those who are sincere and serious in this process of bhakti. Just like if our goal is to become an expert physicist or engineer or doctor or tennis player or piano player, well, if we're a piano player, we're gonna hang out with other musicians. Tennis player, we're gonna hang out with other tennis players who are like, yeah, they're practicing 8 hours a day. I really want to become a qualified medical practitioner. We're going to hang out with other medical students and professors. Association, this association is so key. And then we increase our association with the sincere devotees of Krishna. Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Shastre Koi, Lavamacha Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Siddhi Hoy. It's ascribed even 1 moment's, Lavamacha, even 1 moment's association with the pure devotee, and to the extent that we're receptive, is completely transformational. And Prabhupada would often emphasize the most vital, essential type of association is not physical, it's what he would call vibrational, preceptorial. So here, in reading Prabhupada's books, we're associating with the pure devotee, Srila Prabhupada. And so we associate, and then naturally, whoever we associate with will tend to develop more of a taste. We associate with someone who's just talking about the political news, we'll develop more of a taste, and we'll start thinking about that. And as association could be physical association, it could be what we read on the internet, what kind of books we read. That's a form of vibrational association. So we associate with those who are practicing Krishna consciousness, then naturally we develop a taste. Adal Shraddha Tata Sadhu, Sadhu Sangha. It's called Sadhu Sangha. Sangha means association with sadhus. Sadhus, those who are piercing through the illusion and getting to the reality of who we are as not the body, as spirit, soul, Sir Jivar Subhoy Krishnera Nityadas Krishnera Tatasta Shakti Beta Beta Prakash, eternal servants of Sri Krishna and the personality of God, surrendering to that position. That's who we actually are. Naturally, we're peaceful. So then the next, Adal Shuratata Sadhu Sangato Bhajana Kriya. Bhajana Kriya, a way to understand that is that's initiation, or that's commitment. That's like an initiation doesn't need to mean the formal ceremony of initiation. The formal ceremony is it's a part of the process of initiation. Bhajana Kriya, the essence of that stage is, okay, I'm not just kind of like meandering here and there and let me check it out. Bhajana Kriya means I'm making a commitment. I'm making a commitment. It doesn't necessarily mean that we're 100% rigorous, pure, and unbreakable in our commitment. That's part of the process. But we're making it's part of the process. We see, oh, I made that commitment. I made that commitment 40 some years ago. What's my relationship with my chanting commitment? What's my relationship with the regulative principles commitment? But it means, yeah, we're committing sincerely that to follow our spiritual master A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. He recommends and to commit to a minimum number of Hare Krishna japa rounds per day, like that. So he recommends, and it's not about like should. It's not about like you have to do it. It's about if I really want to progress in this consciousness and come out of the illusion and out of drowning in the material ocean. There's a saying that freedom, real freedom, is the capacity to commit to our highest good. So it's like, I get that this bhakti yoga, this is who I am at the core. I want to commit to reviving that consciousness. I want to commit to real spiritual life. That's my highest good. And in that connection, then I get to truly serve people in their higher, and serve them in the most profound way, to the extent that I'm realized. So that's bhajana kriya. And Aoshara Tata Sadhu Sangatu Bhajana Kriya Tato Nortanya Vritisha. We follow through with our commitment. Commitment means I'm creating a container, right? And whereas, like, with no container, then kind of like, oh, this process is getting a little difficult. Why rise at 4 a.m.? I like to sleep till 10 a.m. So I think I'll do that this week. Okay, all right. So then at the same time, commitment means, well, it means to discipline ourselves. Tapo devya putrakis yena sattvam shuddhya disman brahma sokyam tvananta. Discipline means giving up some immediate gratification, because I'm investing in a deeper long-term fulfillment. Common saying, if we're only ready to do what's easy, life will be hard. If we're ready to do what's hard, life will be easy. So let's take that getting up for example. Oh, it's hard to get up early in the pre-dawn. That's hard. But I did it today. And now here we are at 8:45 a.m. And I've been up for about 5 hours. And I've been chanting Hare Krishna, singing bhajan and kirtan, and associating with sincere souls like you. So now life is easy. I'm energized. Whereas, let's say it's like, and if we're only willing to do what's easy, life will be hard. It's easy to sleep till the sun's high in the sky. But then, I get out, and then I'm chasing my day, and I'm all this pressure, and I'm like, okay. So we can apply that to so many areas of life. And so let me, to be a disciple, of Guru, a disciple of spiritual master, disciple of Srila Prabhupada, means I discipline myself. It means I'm creating a container that even when it's getting hard, when the going gets tough, I'm in there. I'm staying in the container. And like the word tapa means austerity, and saying tapa means austerity. It's a Sanskrit word. It means heat. It's getting heat. There's pressure in this container, and that's purifying. So then the heart or consciousness gets purified from all the junk. And to the extent that I retain those impurities because I'm attached to them, and I identify with the greed, lust, envy, illusion, deception, laziness, complaint, to the extent that I'm attached to that, I'm really giving myself no chance for happiness. Right? This happiness and purity, they go together. They go together like hand and glove. So then we get purified, and then tato nishta ruchistata. Then naturally we develop more and more of a taste. Then, in a sense, as we come to more and more of a taste, Vishaya vinivartate niraharasya denam rasa bharjamasopyasya param drishtva nivartate. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, he says to Arjuna and to us, he says, look, as a general principle, you're not going to give up lower addictions until you develop a higher spiritual taste. So we develop the higher spiritual taste, then more and more, that's all we want to do. Then more and more we're enthusiastic to get up early, enthusiastic to consume only prasadam and not other food that is like, it's kind of like eating in a way that perpetuates our karma. Yageshishta shina shanto buchante sarvakabhishe budante te tvagam papam te pachant yatmakarana. Krishna says it's like you're eating karma that will drag you down. So and we want to chant Hare Krishna, we want to serve Prabhupada's movement, and we just like that more and more, like that's what I want to do. That's why I want to dovetail all parts of my life, whether it's career or finances or residence or friendship. We develop a taste. It's like, it's not like I need to discipline myself like that. And then from that taste, then the sincere spirit, soul, in bhakti and Shuddha Sattva naturally completely rises above the illusory material identification, which is important. It's described in the Bhagavatam, Bhayam Dvitiya Biniveshatasya. It's described to the extent that we misidentify the eternal spirit soul with a temporary material body, we're going to be in anxiety, we're going to be secure, we're going to be insecure. So real security is this bhakti, savai pumsam parodharmo yato bhakti and hokshaje ayetuki pratita yayatma suprasidati. It's described that if we want to engage in bhakti yoga, the yoga of devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, under the guidance of the pure devotee, nothing material can get in the way. Hetu means reason. Ahetuki pratita yayatma suprasidati. So in a sense, this is very encouraging news. In one sense, it can be discouraging because it's saying, Bhagavatam saying, if we're sincere, nothing will stop us from engaging in bhakti. So in one sense, it takes away our excuses. Well, I want to engage in devotional service, but I can't because Bhagavan said, if we're sincere. And then the good news about that is, like, we can think of the greatest calamity, the greatest catastrophe, the greatest tragedy we can, imagine. And if we want to engage in bhakti, and as we emphasized earlier in the class, the foundational way to engage in bhakti, chanting the names of the Absolute, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, and we can chant in our mind. We can chant loud enough for us and others to hear. If we want to engage in bhakti, we can always do that, and that's the bliss of the soul. So that bliss is always available, and realizing that and engaging. Avyarta kalatvam, that's a quality of a soul committed to self-realization, committed to pure devotion to Krishna, means doesn't want to waste a moment. It doesn't mean like anxiety. Oh, it means it's very joyful. Avyarta kalatvam, dedicated to not waste a moment outside of meaningful, purposeful living. It means we're realizing the value of each moment and we don't want to squander it. We want to use it for the highest purpose of the human form of life. I'll read this text again, then I'll be glad to hear any questions or comments anyone would like to ask or share. This is Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 7, entitled Further Inquiries by Vidura. This is text 18. Artabhavam binishchitya pratitasya pinatmana tam chapi yushmacharana sevayaham paranude. This is Vidura speaking to Maitreya. But, my dear sir, I am obliged to you because now I can understand that this material manifestation is without substance, although it appears real. I am confident that by serving your feet, it will be possible for me to give up the false idea. Hare Krishna, thanks for your presence and listening. I welcome if anyone wants to share any comments or realizations or inspirations or ask any questions. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, who's that? Manti Banerjee. Yeah. Hare Krishna. Thanks for being here. Any questions or comments?
I loved the thing you said about purity and happiness go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Could you elaborate a little bit? I understand happiness, of course, purity in mind and
Yeah.
all activities, right? What
Yeah.
exactly purity means?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Monty Banerjee. I appreciate your question. Thank you. And yeah, I mean, I'll just share whatever realizations I have. I'll be glad to hear from others. And I mean, that comes from Prabhupada. There's a place right there in the first canto of Bhagavatam, and Prabhupada writes that, yeah, happiness is directly correlated with the purity of our habits. So, okay, I guess what's coming to me in response to your question is kind of like, let's think of unhappiness, lack of happiness, misery and suffering. So I know, like in impurity, that means like, let's say, for example, some of the anartas on one, it's like if I'm holding envy or jealousy, okay, why does that one have that happiness, and why is she succeeding? Why is he getting so much honor? And it's burning my heart. It's just like whatever else is happening in my life, I'm giving by retaining that impurity, envy and jealousy, for example, then there's just no way I can be joyful and happy. So it's like it's an impurity. And ultimately it's envy of God. I'm not accepting Om Purnamada Purnamida Purnamudachite. Everything has a perfect and complete arrangement for my self-realization, like that. Or envy, jealousy. Let's look at something like another form of impurity, greed, whatever. Well, okay, I got that salary now. Okay, I got this much in the bank. Yeah, well, I have this kind of car, but I want more. I want more. Not just I need that more. Again, it's like another form of impurity, greed. It's just like there is no chance. There's no chance of me being like blissful, joyful, peaceful, satisfied, fulfilled, vibrant, childlike, playful, because that impurity in the form of greed, it's just wrecking my internal life. Okay, we can take any of these. So we looked at envy, jealousy, greed. Let's say lust. Let's say lust. One way to think of lust is like it's the opposite of empathy. Lust, when lust has a hold of me, lust is like, okay, that particular form of enjoyment, whether it's physical enjoyment, whether it's I need for that group to respect me, whatever, lust for respect, honor, distinction, I need to be adored, whatever it is. So lust, yeah, lust doesn't mean I want that. Lust means I need that. I need that to be satisfied. There's a text in Bhagavad Gita. Dayato visyan pumsan sangaste shucha vijayate sangat santayate kamat krodo bijayate. While contemplating the objects of the senses, one develops material attachment. From attachment comes lust. Then our lust is frustrated, and then one becomes angry, and then anger pollutes the whole body, and just like that whole downward spiral. Again, no chance to be free and secure and liberated and happy. And then another, so we can just think of the different forms of impurity. I just visited a few, there are many more. Laziness, complacency. It's just like they just don't go along with with vibrancy and fulfillment. And then it's described in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Bhukti Mukti Siddhikami Sakalyashanta. To the extent that we attain any material desire, or even an impersonal desire for salvation or liberation, we won't be peaceful. And Krishna Krishna Bhakta Nishkama Ata Eva Shanta. And that, because we're going to desire, the nature of the spirit soul is to desire. There are some approaches to spirituality where the encouragement, the idea is just rid yourself of all desires. Because we all know desires get us into trouble. They cause a frustration and conflict. So just rid yourself of all desires. which sounds nice. The only problem with that approach is that it's completely impossible, 100% impossible. It's the nature of the soul to desire, and that's not a bad thing. And to the extent that we direct our natural propensity for desire to, instead of pleasing the senses of this body or this false ego, let me please Krishna through pleasing his pure devotee Srila Prabhupada, then naturally we're peaceful and happy and joyful. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Pratyakshava gamam dharmyam shushukam kartumavyam. He says this process of bhakti, because this is the nature of the soul. He says it's directly experienced, it's not just cognitive or theoretical, and it's shushukam kartumavyam. It's joyfully performed. And to perform bhakti steadily, it means we're pure. We're pure in our habits, whether it's our habits of eating, whether it's our habits of money management, our habits of resting and rising, our in every area of life, pure in our habits, and then we're not contaminating ourselves. So I appreciate your question very much. Thank you, Monty.
Thank you. I tend to confuse lust and attachment with empathy. I need to separate them.
Thanks for that distinction. Yeah, because like if I'm lusty, it means I need to have this now. And then I don't care about what someone else is feeling or what someone else's worldview is. And so to truly be empathic with someone and understand and feel what they're feeling, to be like Prahlad, it's described, Prahlad Maharaj, he described a true devotional heart as paradukkha dukhi. He feels someone else's pain as his own and someone else's happiness as his own. So that means I'm not lusty to gratify the material mind and ego and senses. Thanks for that. Thanks for that comment.
Yeah, this is Salil Gupta. I was wondering if you can give your sense of what is freedom in spiritual sense. The choice that we give to be, say, just for example, you were talking about desire, the choice for a particular desire, as well as a freedom not to choose for that desire. When it becomes a problem is when, as you said, you need it instead of I am choosing it. So if you can explain a little bit more on the spiritual choice or freedom, I will appreciate.
Thank you, Salil Gupta. Thanks for your comment and question. I appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, Hare Krishna. I'm reminded of a text from the 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says, Ishvara sarvabhutanam videsher junatishtati brahmayan sarva bhutani yantra bhutani mayaya. And so the word yantra in Sanskrit means a machine. So to the extent that we associate with and identify with the lower modes of the machine of material energy, that's a term Krishna uses, the machine of material energy, then we're not free. And related to your question, Salil Gupta, my view is more and more as years and decades go on, what goes on in the name of freedom is actually slavery. It's actually slavery, right? I'll be a slave to my tongue and genitals and a slave to some ideology I picked up, but a slave to advertising. Okay. So the thing is that for the spirit soul, right, we're We're spiritual beings having a human experience. For the spirit soul, our nature is to be dependent. And our choice is to be dependent on matter or spirit. To be dependent on spirit means we're choosing to be dependent on the process of self-realization, on chanting the names of Krishna, on service to God. To the extent that we're using our choice to be dependent on spirit, then we're free. That's freedom. Then we're free from the pushing and the pulling of the material modes of nature. Then we're free to use this body and this mind and the resources of this house or this money in the bank account or this vehicle. Then we're free to use that for our highest good. I quoted the saying, freedom is the capacity to commit to our highest good. And to the extent that we allow the lower modes of nature to drag, our eyes have to look here out of lust, our tongue needs to taste this, our ego needs this gratification of this respect, then that's not freedom. An example we use sometimes is someone could say, I'm so free. I have this TV set up. I can choose from 250 channels. That's freedom. Then the question is, are you able to choose to not to watch any of those channels for the next 3 months? Oh, I'd go stir crazy. I couldn't do that. Okay, so that means, like, in the name of freedom, it's actual slavery. So actual freedom means liberation from the modes of nature. And again, our nature is going to be attached to the extent that we're using our free choice. There's a text in 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna describes, Devyesha gunamai mamamaya dhiratyaya mameva ye prapadyante mayametam tarantite. Krishna says that this material whirlpool is practically impossible to overcome on your own. But one who takes shelter in me through devotional service is easily free from the material whirlpool. So those are some preliminary principles that I believe relate to your question there. I'm not hearing. I think you're speaking. I think you're on mute at this thing.
Yeah, sorry, I was mute. So from a spiritual sense of freedom is exactly what you are saying. But even in the non-physical, non-spiritual or physical or mental realm, if you can choose to do a thing like example that you gave of watching TV because I have 200 channels,
Yeah.
but also have the same choice of not watching. And when you choose not to watch, that is a freedom that gives you freedom to watch also.
Yes. Yeah, thanks for that. Thanks for, yeah, for me, this relates, okay. The mode of sattva is still material, but right, there's 3 modes of nature.
Right.
Tamas, Rajas, and Sattva. I'll mention in the 1990s, as part of our PhD dissertation, we developed the Vedic Personality Inventory. It's a personality assessment tool based on the psychology of the ancient Vedas, which describes that everything in the material world is pervaded by Tamas, Rajas, Sattva. So
I would love to get that inventory tool.
Oh, yes. Okay. If you send me an email,
Okay.
I'm glad to send it to you. Are you an associate of Nitya Gopal Prabhu?
Yes.
Yeah, he has my email address. Okay.
So Nityananji can hopefully mediate that process, because I would love to have a inventory personality tool based on Vedic literature,
Yeah.
because I know in the I've been in senior leadership in medical field, so we use that tool, Brigham Myers, and there are several, 3 or 4 tools.
Yeah.
So that will be good to compare those.
Nice. Yeah, you use the Myers-Briggs. Interesting. Because Myers-Briggs is based on the philosophy, the psychology of Carl Jung, and
Yes,
he actually borrowed a lot from the Vedas.
I know. Carl Jung was the guy who would say cosmic consciousness.
Yeah, yeah. And I'll mention we used the Vedic personality inventory also in the 90s as one of the main measuring devices for our group study. The title of my dissertation is Effects of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra on Stress, Depression, and the Three Gunas. So we did a group study. There was a group that chanted Hare Krishna, a group that didn't chant anything, and a group that chanted kind of like a placebo mantra. And the results of the studies confirm the Vedic assertions and hypotheses that chanting Hare Krishna Maha Mantra relieves stress, relieves depression. And so the essence of sattva is an expanded range of choice. And it's true.
Yes.
It's like, yeah, because like to the extent that we're immersed in rajas and tamas, our choices are particularly narrow. Let's say like a spirit soul in the body of a dog or a tree. So it's like it's covered by lots of lower modes, and so the choice is maybe to sniff here or to sniff there, or like very very narrow. So to the extent that we cultivate sattva in any life area, we have an expanded range of choice. And that expanded range of choice doesn't necessarily mean that we'll use the choice wisely. I can use the expanded range of choice to watch 10 hours of mindless TV, and then I'm immersed in Rajas and Tamas, and then my choice, then my whole brain and consciousness is dulled and covered. Or I can use that expanded range of choice to enter into transcendence, to have discussions like this, to chant Hare Krishna. I appreciate the discussion.
And so was that the thesis you wrote in your PhD, or there was just a study that was published?
My PhD is on the effects of chanting Hare Krishna on reducing stress and depression and increasing sattva. And yeah, so we describe the research, and we describe the philosophy behind it, somewhat related to what we're speaking here.
Very nice. Love to maybe get hold of that thesis or
Yeah,
the conclusion.
I'll be glad to send it to you. A few years ago, we published it in book form, so I'll be glad to send it to you.
Okay. Where are you based? Are you in Alachua or?
Yes, I am in Alachua, Florida.
I was in Gainesville for 5 years, and I used to come to Alachua Temple every Sunday.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you're familiar with Alachua County.
Yes.
Very, very nice to meet you, Salil Gupta.
Nice to meet you too.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Guruji. I have a question.
Yes, Kajal Pal.
Yeah, let me turn on the video. Yeah, you talked about, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, you talked about, attachment materials, and another thing you talked about, which is sacrifice. I think it's a different meaning. But as a human being, if you think through that, uh, uh, our survival and ego is the most important, but balancing these two is also the key. Uh, so, as a human being, as a body, if we cannot survive, we cannot do other activities,
Yeah.
even mantras, tantras, and all other stuff.
Yeah.
So, which will bring. So, my thinking process is that the balancing and the simplicity, which will bring down your desire versus need. Can you talk about this a little bit? So
Okay.
where do you see this? Like you give an example, 200 channel versus you can see the both side. We say, okay, we have option to watch 200, we're feeling happy, but at the same time, when we started watching, we are bombarded with all this
Yeah.
information coming into our mind. So there is a dichotomy in there. Feeling happiness and doing things, bad thing, which is another thing. So it is a very delicate line. You're crossing that boundary. Same with ego and having ego, also leading a simplistic life, monastic life. But society doesn't grow like this, right? Everybody become a monastic, then who will create all these creations? Like we are using like iPhones and all kind of stuff. So I like to hear some thoughts. That's where I came from, materialistic world and the spiritualistic world, the classes, but we cannot define uh, w- where is the boundary and how this two gets uh, collided with certain thought process. Both in my view, both has to survive in this world, you know materialistic view and also spiritualistic view. The key point is that how do you balance it?
Thank you, Kajal Paul. I appreciate your sharing and question. Earlier in the class, we gave the vehicle analogy, right? So, just like I drive a Toyota Corolla. So if while driving the Toyota Corolla, if I'm thinking, I'm Japanese, oh, that's illusion. Let's say the next day I get into a Volkswagen, I think, now I'm German. The next day I'm in a Chrysler, I think, now I'm an American. So that's illusion. Now you say, well, no, that's not you. That's just the car you're driving in. So Atato Brahma Jigyasa, that's the first aphorism of the Vedanta Sutra. It says that now that we've achieved a human form of life, now's the time to inquire about spirit, self-realization. In the human form, we have the capacity to ask questions that spirit souls and other species don't get to ask. Questions like, who am I? What happens at the time of the death of the body? What's the purpose of my life? What am I pretending not to know? Etc., etc. So the body's like a vehicle, it's like a car. And the driver of the car is more important than the car. Just like we shared the example a few minutes ago. If we hear there's a car crash, we don't immediately ask whether the car is in the junkyard. We ask, oh, was anyone killed? Or did anyone get injured? Because we know the driver is more important. And the car is also important, right? So like, I want to take care of the car. And the car represents the external body and the subtle material body, mind, intelligence. We want to take care of it. We want to make sure it gets its tune-up. We want to make sure that the tires are properly inflated. We want to make sure it's clean. We want to make sure the car is not in need of repair. We want to take care of the car. So that's the body. Yeah, and to neglect the car is irresponsible, even in terms of the body. Like the body's a temple of God. So we want to take care of the car while cultivating realization that I'm not the car, that I'm the driver. Both are important. Both are important. So the car takes us on our journey, our self-realization, God consciousness journey. So we want to cultivate realization that I'm not German because I'm driving a Mercedes. That's just the car. So I want to cultivate I want to take care of this body to use it in meaningful purposes while cultivating realization that in an absolute sense, I'm not David Wolf, 63 years old from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I'm a spirit, soul, eternal servant of God. there's a text by Srila Rupa Goswami, Anasaktasya Vishayan, Yatar Upayunjata Nibbanda Krishna Sambade Yuktam Vairagam Yuchate, that talks about Yukta Vairagya. So this process of the bhakti spiritual life, it's not world rejecting, it's world accepting. It's not about, let's be spiritual, let's reject smartphones, even though I'll confess I still don't use a smartphone. But anyhow, here we are, using computers in a way that enhances self-realization and spiritual life. So bhakti is very world embracing, and it's the science and the art of how to use all the energy, how to use technology and cars and relationships and family life and the body and the mind, how to use everything, professions, how to use everything in bhakti and spiritual service, not to reject it. So it's not like this or that. Bhakti is an integrated world embracing process, and it requires sincerity and wisdom, intelligence about how to use those 250 channels, how to use the money in the bank account in service to God, such that it's truly supporting me to realize who I am as the driver of the car, not the car. Those are some thoughts I have related to Prabhupada's teachings in relation to your sharing.
Yeah, what you said exactly, I totally make sense and agree with that. I think that's where I think most of us common people struggle with that supporting materialistic world. We tend to go towards that more than spiritual world where the balance break out and we fall into trap. I think that's the key part of our so far my realization is the life. So we are going in a delicate line and keep thinking, where, what is the balance? Should I have a 4-bedroom house or should I have a 3-bedroom house? And then how much time I'll spend, all this. So because there is no book that tells us that for living a materialistic life to support the most goal is spiritual growth. To have this material uh, support your body, and to support the body you have to take care of your surroundings, families, communities, and all kind of. I know I'm going into this. I think that's where the most of the people we struggle because we don't have the compass. We don't know the limit. I'm talking about very layman challenges day to day we face. Yeah, and I understand this, spiritual books and all is very philosophical, very, very philosophical, which tends to work. Just giving example here is uh, if I go in a extreme, either of the side, happiness or sad. So philosophy perfectly works there because I quit the sadness, go into the philosophy, and happiness is I got everything, so I beyond, so I get into philosophy. That's my thought.
Thank you, Kajal Pal. Thanks for receiving what I expressed and for sharing. I'll just share as we come to closure of our class and discussion today. For me, my a a main element of the compass for me is to regularly study the books of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. By studying the books of Srila Prabhupada, I get realization. I get realization of, as my day goes on, how to respond to the email in my inbox, how to respond to my urge to go to the refrigerator, how to respond purposefully and with spiritual consciousness to each aspect of my day and life. So for me, the books of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, the past 44 years or so, are a major or a powerful, substantial foundation for that compass you talked about. Rosa.
Yes, thank you. To build off of some of the questions, and something that was on my mind is you spoke earlier on anxiety, and I can't use your same words, but often anxiety is described as the imagining of threat, right? A perceived threat that is a story for us. And you had spoken about how in lust, when people are really wanting of something, they can become angry, and connecting these things together. What if the anxiety isn't necessarily a perceived threat that is far away, like not getting the job promotion, or not getting the respect from this person or that? But when I look around now, I feel that I see people angry, and they would describe themselves as suffering for not having things that they need. They don't feel safe. Um,
Yeah.
and then the kind of surrender that is required to deal with that.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, Rosa. Right, so yeah, I like how you define anxiety means some perceived threat, but really it's a false threat. But it's based on the illusion that I am this ego, that I am this body-mind complex, body-mind false ego complex. And like, if I don't get that respect, I'll be embarrassed, I'll be destroyed. If I don't get that position, if I don't get this person as my mate, as my partner, then my ego, my image will be destroyed, and my sense of identity is so wound up and entwined in this false conception of who I am. And at the root of all that is the false conception that I am this body, and all of the ego around that. And then again, so relates, it's described in Bhagavad Gita. Avinasi tu tadvidi yena sarvamidam tata dina shamadhyasya nakashit kodumahasi, that the spirit soul is never destroyed. So, and only the temporary material body is destroyed. And that so to the extent that we realize that we're that spirit soul, there's no death for the soul, then that's being unstoppable. That's security, because it's like, no, you can't touch me. I could get this insult, or this lack of respect, or my whole financial thing, my whole career collapses. We realize that I continue to exist blissfully serving Krishna, and then there's no anxiety. And then there's the anxiety is just that false identification with the false conception of self, and the false ego. Yes, I'll be shamed, I'll be embarrassed, and I am that person who's being shamed, or I'll be honored if I just get that promotion or get that degree. And then that's happiness and distress in the material sphere. However, that's why the encouragement of Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, Srila Prabhupada, is, yeah, let's take care of the body, let's take care of the car, and let's give as much time as possible to cultivate spiritual joy, spiritual happiness, because then that's the real position of being free from anxiety. Because then I'm realizing who I am as this deathless entity. Does that respond to your question?
Yes. So I think, using your example, maybe what I was talking about is for the people, and again, this is through my perception. I just feel like I'm seeing it often. The people who feel like they can't take care of the car, they don't have
Yeah.
what they need to take care of the bare necessities, and they're angry.
Yeah. And so our emphasis here is to realize that we're the driver. And to the extent we realize we're the driver, then you know, sometimes for the car there will be happiness, sometimes distress. At the same time, we're just less and less attached to that. Because ultimately, yeah, we don't want to neglect the car. Ultimately, the car is going to be worm stool or ashes. It's going to be buried. It's going to be thrown into the ocean. Again, we don't want to neglect the car. At the same time, sometimes the car, the body, just like sometimes there's happy, oh, it's the perfect weather. Sometimes, it's like 95 degrees and high humidity in Florida. Or sometimes the finances are happy, sometimes the finances are not, sometimes the relationships, in all aspects of the life of the body and the material mind, there's happiness and distress. So let's endeavor to take care of that responsibly. And Krishna is encouraging us to not be disturbed by that happiness and distress. Matras parshas tu kantia shitoshna shukadukada agamapaino nijas tamsti tikshasva bharata. Krishna says the appearance of happiness and distress and their disappearance in due course, they arise from sense perception. Let's tolerate them without being disturbed and continue with enthusiasm for cultivating the real life of the eternal soul. Thank you, Rosa. Hare Krishna. Thank you, everyone. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thanks for your presence and association. Jai.
Thank you, Guruji.
Thank you.